Hey guys, Kevin Bupp here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow podcast. Our mission is to help you build and maintain massive amounts of cash flow through income-producing real estate investments. Now, our guest for this week's show is real estate investment and self-storage expert, Drew Dolan. Now, Drew is a principal at DXD Capital, a data-driven Class A self-storage investment firm. Drew has a 20-plus year career in real estate and has spent his time focused in areas such as deal structure, debt, and capital procurement and management. And so with that, guys, it's my honor to welcome Drew to the show. Drew, how you doing today?
Good. Right on, Kevin. Thanks for having me.
Excited to have you here. Excited to, again, peel back the curtain a little bit and get a look behind your business. But Drew, before we do that, for those that aren't familiar with you and your firm, maybe take a few moments. I'll pass the mic back to you and just tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, kind of how you found your way or your path into the self-storage space, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks. I'm got an engineering degree out of college, but I quickly realized that I actually didn't want to be an engineer and had one of these oh shit moments. Now what do I do? And I got into construction right after college, spent about 5 years in that space. Quickly realized that in my world in construction interacted with developers, real estate developers, and these guys were just having more fun and making more money and calling the shots. And it's like, boy, I want to do that. So really started from scratch at about 27, learning development. I was very, very lucky that I got teamed up with a guy who was a seasoned vet at the time, became my mentor, really partner in all kinds of different real estate deals, and just learned, over time. It took probably 2 years before I knew what I was doing, 5 years before I was really making money and adding value. Over my career, it's very diverse, multifamily, office, senior living, self-storage. So I've seen a lot. Mm-hmm. It gives me a really awesome perspective on what is unique about self-storage and what I really like. It's all we do now. We built DXD into a private equity company that only invests in self-storage with just this goal of using tech and data and proprietary analytics to be the best investor in the space. Mm-hmm. And the cool thing is we get to do it over and over and over again. What changes is where we invest, what markets, what sites, how we put deals together. But it's all self-storage all the time.
Got it. Fantastic. I appreciate that background there. And is it, ground up development, you buy existing, or a little bit of both?
At the moment, it's all ground up. Okay. We want to do, and we will do value add. We're just finding a lot more opportunities to make money in ground up. Really what I've seen over the last 2 years is a ton of institutional capital pour into self-storage because it left senior living or it left office. And it went into things like industrial, multifamily, and niche sectors like self-storage, mobile home parks too, right, Kevin? And prices went way up, returns went way down. So guys like us, we didn't see a whole lot of great value add deals where we could make a lot of money because there's so much money spinning in the system. But a lot of that institutional capital did not go to real estate development because it takes so much time to develop something. You can put a lot of money to work by buying something. You gotta have a lot of patience for development. And so where we are in the cycle, we believe and we know we're finding outsized returns in just pure ground up self-storage.
Okay, fantastic. So you'd mentioned that, throughout your career, you've spent time in a number of different sectors. You mentioned assisted living, office. There was a number of multifamily. There's a number of others there, but ultimately, you honed all those resources and the focus into self-storage. Give me some of the reasonings behind making that final decision.
The asset class I was heaviest into prior to self-storage, call it 6 years ago, was senior living. Mm-hmm. And this was developing memory care, AL, independent living, and AL, assisted living all across the country. We did 11 ground up projects. These are quality 110 unit facilities. These are big boys, where we would hire the operator and they would run it. And what I really appreciated, when I kind of made this transition in my life, because we were doing self-storage at the time, and then I made the transition about 3 years ago to only focus on self-storage, is that senior living is a operating business that uses the real estate to make money. Self-storage, you make money when you decide to invest, where and when. And the operations is just a component to capitalize on the real estate. A totally different operating profile. To change operators in senior living, it is an enormous amount of risk and work. To change operators in self-storage, it's not that challenging. And I say it a lot, but in senior living, you could have the wrong product at the wrong time in the wrong spot of the market. And when I mean wrong, I don't mean totally wrong, but if it's not perfect, but if you have the right operator, you can be successful. Versus if you have the right product at the right time, at the right market, and you have the wrong operator in senior living, you will not be successful. That's just how intense of an operating business that was. And so what really drew me to get back in 100% focus on self-storage was just this real estate, less operating business, all real estate, making real estate decisions.
Okay. Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. Talk to me about the data-driven approach that you guys take, and maybe back up a moment and give me a general idea, give listeners a general idea of the region of the country that you guys focus your time, effort, and energy on, and then ultimately what that data-driven approach is that you take to find the ideal sites that are best suited for your business model.
Well, I'll start by saying that self-storage is an absolute commodity. There is zero brand loyalty. Nobody chooses Extra Space because they love them or they had a great commercial. That's just not what happens. Kevin, if you wanted self-storage tomorrow, you'd go to the web, you'd Google it, you'd figure out what's close to your house, what's the price, and is the unit size, the 10 by 10 available? And then you really don't care whether it's public or Extra Space. I mean, you want it to be clean and nice and secure and all the rest. But, because it's such a commodity, you can use data at a scale that's not completely as applicable or relevant as something like a hotel or, an office building. And so really the thesis behind DXD is that you can make investment decisions based on data at a more accurate, higher level than you can for other asset classes. And so what we've really done, it's one of my founding partners at DXD is a guy named Corey Sylvester. He and two other partners started a platform called Radius Plus. Radius Plus is the database, the online platform where everybody in the self-storage industry goes for data. If you want to figure out how much self-storage is in an area of the market, of your region of Tampa, you can put a pin and see every single storage facility. You can see all the rates that they've been charging for months and months. So they have all this amazing data, which, it's the equivalent of axiometrics for multifamily or Zonda for single family or STAR for hospitality. So they have all this amazing data, but at their core, they're a tech company, and they think about ways to use tech and to consolidate data and use that to make decisions. And so the thesis behind DXD is it's this hybrid between private equity, real estate developer, because that's how we capitalize on it, and tech company using data and tech tools with this idea that we're going to put all those together just to be the best investor in self-storage, because we're not unique in terms of the data that's backwards looking. Anybody can go to Radius and find backward looking data. What is unique about what we do is then we stack other data sets and look at different metrics to say, yes, the market did perform like this, but based on this data, we think it's going to perform like that. Therefore, we should or should not make an investment. That's really the core difference.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, given that, self-storage is a commodity, how do you go about making those investment decisions to where your risk is somewhat mitigated, right? Like the barriers to entry become a little lower when that type of data is available out there. And given that, most developers or those that are investing in self-storage, they have access to it. And so how do we go about ensuring that wherever you're going to build a new development, that ultimately you don't find yourself in a scenario in 5 years down the road where it's overbuilt and ultimately your returns are suffering as a cause of it?
Yeah, great question. Because if storage had an Achilles heel, it's that it can get overbuilt, and it does get overbuilt. And that's what always cycles the market. And so couple things. We're really looking at to skate to where the puck's going to be. Not that we see the puck going in this direction, let's go. We're looking 2 or 3 plays from now and saying this is where we need to be, and that we are unique in that space, that we do have data and some tools that do allow us to scale through opportunities and to look at a macro level. We can take a city and look at it from a macro level and say, this is where we should be investing, and here's why, based on these different factors. But you brought up a point, barriers to entry. That, to us, there are really 2 types of markets we focus on. Markets that have really high growth, where we know that there's new multifamily, new job growth, it's going to grow. We want great real estate. We do want a municipality that's a little bit harder to deal with, meaning that you got to get a zone change or a variance, because we don't want to show up in Houston where there's a lot of land and no zoning and somebody can just pop up right next to us and crush us. Then we look at markets where they're not growing as much, but the stats say there's excess demand, and that would be they're 99% occupied. The rates for a 10 by 10 are $320 versus the rates for a 10 by 10 in Phoenix are $140. Why are rates so high? Why are they so highly occupied? Can you build something that's different than what exists there and be a better choice? And whether that's drive up units, this is the non-sexy stuff about self-storage, the drive up units, or indoor loading, or car parking, all these little things. You're really trying to understand the nuances of every market, because you say, let's go build self-storage, and that would be like saying, let's go build apartments, but yet you don't even think about, is it 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom? Same thing in self-storage. Yeah. There are 10 different unit types, 15 different unit types. And not everybody wants every type of unit. Every market wants a certain thing. And so you can study the data and really look behind the curtain to see, why is that market? Why are 10 by 15s doing better in that market than 5 by 5s? Understand it, overweight, design toward that, be more successful than you otherwise normally would be.
I love it. You had mentioned that there's really not that much brand loyalty, if any, in the self-storage space. And you also made a comment, comparing it to assisted living, just when it comes down to changing operators, of how much of a burden and a beast it is to do that in the assisted living space, whereas self-storage, not so much. And so are you utilizing a third-party operator to run your facilities, or do you have that vertically integrated in your infrastructure?
Yeah, and you asked a question before that'll lead into this, is we're developing across the country. Right now we're from Rhode Island to Hawaii. And one of the reasons we can be so diverse is because we do use one of the third-party operators, primarily Extra Space and Public Storage. One of these days, Noah Springer, who's the head of third-party management at Extra Space, he's going to listen to one of these where I said there is no brand loyalty, and he's going to call me up and call me on the carpet for it.
That's his primary sales pitch, huh?
What do you mean there's no brand loyalty? He's gonna shake me down for saying that. But
that's funny.
What we build is a product, then we slap Extra Space's name on it. So you would not know whether they own it in the REIT or we own it. It's operated, it looks from a website, it's the same. And we pay them a fee to do that. And at where we are, our size and how spread out we are, that is the best strategy for us to execute on.
Got it. I was going to say, obviously it gives you a very, very wide reach that you might not have if it was vertically integrated. What are some of the downsides? What are some of the downsides of going with a more national brand than that of if you had it in-house?
Well,
and maybe that's hopefully he doesn't.
It's listen. A great question.
It's not a slap the hand. It's just more of obviously the pros and cons of any decision that's ultimately made. And you guys have decided to go with this, with this national platform, but ultimately there's got to be a downside or two associated with
it. Number one, I'd say we're building their brand, not our own. Nobody knows DXD Capital. Our investors know DXD Capital. We raise high net worth and family office money. They know us. People in the industry know us. Customers don't know us. So every time we do put public storage or extra space, we go and help them build their brand versus building a brand that we own. So I think about that. There's so many advantages from what they do because they have so many systems in place that we would have to recreate from scratch. But one of the nuances is that we might have a facility close to one of the facilities they own. It's extra space here, it's extra space there. Pricing. The pricing is the only lever. Once these facilities are open, pricing is the only lever you have to drive occupancy, to get an outsized market share of people moving. And so sometimes the REITs don't want us to be 30% lower than other properties in their area because that could drive the whole market down. And so they are incentivized to help us and they want to lease it up. They would love to buy these facilities, but there's also a bit of not 100% alignment because in some respects we are competing. Not in some, we are competing with a facility that they might own in their REIT.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's how does one gain a comfort level there? No, that's a phenomenal point. I mean, there's not a direct alignment of interest. They also own a great deal of real estate. They'd love to own yours. However, they'll take the lesser of the two and manage it, at this point in time. But ultimately, they've got competing facilities in the area, and so it gets. Help me understand the thought process behind just gaining a comfort level there is just way more pros than the outweigh that one downside. That's it, right?
Yeah, the way to offset it is to stay hyper focused on asset management.
Yep. Okay.
In that, and back to what I said, when we open the doors, we're going to price our units on average 30% below the market because we want people to come to us.
Yeah.
Your 2's 20, your 3's 10. That discount brings more people in. And in storage, it might take us 30 months to lease up, even with those discounts. If we didn't have the discounts, it might take us 6 years. So we got to discount. So this pricing is important in that every self-storage customer lease is month to month, meaning that if we want to change their price next month and the month after, you can. And a lot of them, because they don't want to move out of self-storage, will just take it. And a lot of them are paying by credit card. So they don't, it's not top of mind. But back to your question, it's hyper focused on the asset management. It's working with them to put a pricing structure together to say, here's the 3-year, but here's what we're going to do this year. And here's what we're going to do this month. And we're going to go after a strategy we say we're going after. And then if it's not working, we change it. And so it's really us taking control of the pricing and not giving up that pricing power to the REIT operator.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. And talk to me about, the advancement or the integration of just automation in new facilities that are being built. Where are we at in that stage of the game? Are there still physical beings that are working at these facilities, or is it 100% automation?
No, it's 100% people at the moment.
Okay.
And not every operator. There are a handful of really great operators who are doing kiosk autonomous. It does, I think, work better in certain markets and certain sizes and certain products. Extra space, for example, they're not open on Sunday, but you got a keypad, and if you have your unit, you can get in it on Sunday, even though there's not somebody working there. So, and Extra Space during the pandemic, they did not have an online leasing platform. You still had to talk to somebody or call somebody or go in to sign a lease. And to their credit, they shifted almost overnight to this online leasing platform. They had to. So what really they did in 30 days might have taken them 3 years to do. So there was, they look back and I think they're pretty glad they did it because it ultimately saves time for people. But I would say for the most part, self-storage has not run that much differently than it was 20 years ago. One big difference, 20 years ago, the motto was live on site manager.
Right. You don't have the on-site manager living upstairs anymore, do you?
That's totally dead as far as our product's concerned. We never want that. That is actually a sign that, That's not the product we're building or the customer base we're going for. They don't need somebody to live there. But yeah, so I think to get to your question, there is so much more to be done with live kiosks and Bluetooth locks and some of these other things that do just make somebody's life easier versus just doing things the way we did them, because that's the way we do it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's I giggle when I mentioned the guy living upstairs, because there was a facility near where I grew up, and I just remember, this old grumpy couple that lived up there all the time would yell at us kids as we rode our bikes by.
Were they always smoking cigarettes too?
Yeah, I just always thought it was weird. Yeah, they're out there drinking beer, smoking. I mean, like, it was just thinking back. I didn't know what it was when I was a kid. I just thought it was really odd, and looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, they lived there and they ran the facility. But talk to me about managing you guys as an investment firm, just the volatility that we're facing at present time. Again, development is a longer term cycle. We've got the treasuries are all over the place, bouncing all over the place. The Fed's trigger happy. No one's got the crystal ball. I don't care who you are. Like, everyone's got a very wide spectrum of what might happen, and compared to what probably will happen. And what are you guys doing to mitigate any risk on that side?
Well, it is incredibly volatile. It went from 6 months ago, if you were selling a self-storage asset, maybe the best time ever. And I'd say that's the same for industrial multifamily, to literally the world stopped. If it was in the sale pipeline under contract, there's a 5 to 15% retrade, but very, very little is selling at the moment because nobody knows which way is up and people are scared of the interest rates. I mean, we went from 4% to 8% virtually overnight. So it is a very, very disruptive time. This is as close to 2008 as I've seen in my career. I started in real estate in about 2005, and I saw the frenzy, and then I saw really what happened next.
Yeah.
We are going to stay the course with development, primarily because we believe so many other projects get killed or get put on the shelf because of the headwinds that are in our face to do development.
Mm-hmm.
Interest rates double, loan to cost goes down. We have not seen a decline in construction costs yet. Got municipalities or cities that it's really still hard to deal with to get that permit, to get that inspection. There's still supply chain shortages on certain issues. It's a very, very tough time to be a developer, the toughest time in my career, which means that I think a lot of projects don't start in 23, which means that we delay overbuilding self-storage, which means that it's a good time for us to go and capture that. And I think when we look back in 12 months, we'll be really glad we did, although it's a lot of effort to do what we're doing. For any of your investors out there, the way I think about real estate is time solves a lot of problems. Can't solve all of them, can solve a lot of problems. But you got to have a capital structure that gives you the time. Your debt term has to be long enough. Your investors have to be willing to stick with you. If you need more capital, they're there to put more money in, or you're going to put more money in. Because if you don't have that time, that's when things start to compress and really turn ugly. And so I think a lot about having enough time, being ultra conservative, worst case planning, stressing deals. And it might mean that we slow down a little bit on a couple things. I mean, we'll slog through, but it means maybe we raise contingencies or have a lot more interest reserve in deals, or stress them so that we know we can survive and have money in our pocket. Not only is that going to solve existing problems, but we're going to see a bunch of opportunities that we better be prepared to take advantage of.
Yep. No, I agree with you there. And no, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. And I love to always ask this question before we wrap things up. It's always a fun one to kind of finish the show out with. And, you've been at this now many, many years. You've been through some ups and downs. You said, I think you got started in 2005. So seemingly a few years behind one of the, worst recessionary periods, that we've seen in the real estate space, I guess, following only really the Great Depression. And we've all done really challenging deals, but there's always a deal or two that kind of come to mind of the one that gave us, the most stress, the most sleepless nights, the most heartache, right? The most acid reflux. I don't know, right? You describe it how you'd like, but it was a pain in the ass. And talk to me about the one deal that comes to mind, or a deal that comes to mind. What were the challenges associated with it? How did you, either overcome that, or what would you have done differently if you didn't overcome it? What would you have done differently? And just lessons learned from it.
This is going to be right up your alley, Kevin. But in 2006, we bought a 60-acre mobile home park. It's incredibly well located. The infrastructure was crumbling. There was 410 residents, or could be 10 residents, 410. When we bought it, there was 27. So it was on its way to closing because of infrastructure and whatnot. And we were going to convert it to all single family.
Okay.
And then single family got crushed. So here we are with this idea. Not only did we not do that plan, but now we had to run a mobile home park, which I did for about 3 years, wow, which was an amazing experience. Fast forward, we completely retooled that into multifamily, into senior living, both IL and AL memory care. And then we did do some single family when it popped back.
Okay.
That ability to restructure that deal gave us our start. That was the first multifamily, and one facility was 280 units, the other was 190. These are big deals. That gave us the opportunity to start in multifamily. Without that deal, without making that mistake, we might not be in multifamily. And so, I think about that was an oh shit moment, but you got to go and figure out how to turn it around. What saved our butts was we didn't have any debt on it. It was land. It was not cash flow positive, but we had no debt. We had some really patient investors. We owned the land free and clear. We got the entitlements, which was a real slog with the city. The multiplier on that deal was fantastic. The IRR was not because of the time frame.
Sure.
But you look at anybody that held a real estate deal from pre-GFC to post-GFC, a lot of those deals aren't going to make a whole lot of sense. And, because there was no distress pre-GFC. It was all inflated.
Yep.
So very proud of how we worked through that one. Don't want to do it again. But
that was the birth of DXD. That was the first deal for DXD.
No, that was a previous company I was the president of.
Okay.
And we did about 10 multifamily projects during my time, and I ran that division. We did 7 self-storage projects at that company. That company is very diverse and very successful in its diversity. For me, I do believe that you can do a lot of different things in real estate well, but you can't do a lot of different things great or phenomenally. Yep. And for the second half of my career, I wanted to do one thing really, really, really well. And of all the asset classes, I think I picked a good one. Self-storage has, a great runway, but, it's nuanced. It's the ultimate spec product. And there is a difference. There are little things we can do but to make a difference that gets you a 20 IRR versus a 30 IRR. A lot of self-storage projects will be successful. We just want to take a piece of dirt and create the most success possible on it. And that's how we use data to do that, and to really analyze and make an investment decision that we know is really the right answer.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. It's all great insights there, Drew. And I appreciate your time here. I appreciate you coming on the show. For those that are interested, want to learn more about you and DXD Capital and the different projects you guys have working, where's the best place to find more info and potentially reach out to you?
DXD.capital is the website, no.com on the end. My email is Drew, DREW, at DXD.capital. I love talking about self-storage. I love investing. I love talking with investors. Really, for my entire real estate career, it's been investing with high net worth and for high net worth and family offices. I love hearing what drives them, what their need is, how we can tailor something to do that. and we've been incredibly successful doing that. So,
fantastic. Well, Drew, it's been a pleasure having you here, my friend. I appreciate you joining us, and wishing you
thank
guys
you,
all
Kevin.
the best as we go through maybe these next couple of bumpy years, and I'll be excited to watch you guys double down and make some great things happen.
Next time I get involved in a mobile home park, I'm calling you first.
I don't know if I want the 400 space with only 27 paying residents. It doesn't fit our investment model, but but either way, I'm always willing to look at opportunities, right? And so, but no, Drew, appreciate your time. And guys, that's all we have for this week's show. So until we meet again next week, this is your host, Kevin Bupp, wishing you huge success. You guys take care.